Hola everyone, my name is Carla Solorzano and today we're talking about how to start planning your wedding. And with me are two amazing fellow planners, Dee Lee from Dee Lee Designs and Megan Gillikin from A Southern Soiree. Hi Dee, hi Megan, welcome, bienvenidas.
Hi, thanks for having us.
No, thank you guys for accepting the invitation. I'm super excited to talk to you two. As I said at the beginning, they're two fellow planners. Dee is here in LA and Megan is in North Carolina. Riley, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Side note, Megan is also my mentor. So I'm so excited to have her here. It's just an honor. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's been super supportive throughout all this pandemic. So I love my community of planners. This is just beyond. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yes, we love you too. We love you too.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you guys because we are on what we call engagement season officially, and we are on Facebook groups, and I'm sure you guys see this a lot. It's like, oh my God, I just got engaged. Where do I start planning? Right? It's like it's so overwhelming, and we understand, but I kind of wanted to give a little overview or like, don't panic and where to start. You know, what's the easiest, maybe 3 steps to start with wedding planning. The first thing I was thinking is, you know, sometimes the bride and the groom, future bride and groom, have different styles. So to me, it's very important that both of them are on the same page. What do you guys think about what the first step should be?
Yeah, Megan? I think that is honestly the piece that gets missed the most, is that conversation to make sure that they're on the same page, because they get engaged, they get excited, they get bombarded by friends and family members asking them like, where's the wedding? When's the date? What's all the things? And so they jump right into the planning and they forget that conversation that I think sets the tone for the entire planning experience. That is when you start to see drama come out. That's when you start to see disagreements come out. That's when you start to see totally different priorities from one person versus the other. So yes, I think that initial conversation is so important.
Yeah. Dee, anything you want to add, or what are your thoughts?
You know what I start off with, and I love doing this, is I call it my whole love story like interview, right? So I go in and I'm like, so tell me about how you guys proposed, how you met. Like, tell me more about your love story. You know, tell me more about you as a couple. What are your top 3 must-haves? So I ask the bride and the groom that. So then I start to get a better feel for the client. And because I was a teacher before for 13 years, I was just like, you know what? I got to show my grooms, because my grooms are always the ones that are like, hey, show me the numbers. I'm like, there's a lot of logistics that go into it. So let's look at this first. So I present a pie chart of the breakdown of where all the numbers go after we talk about their love story. And they're like, oh, okay. So there's a little more perspective there. And I think it's easier for us then to jump in and say, okay, here's the breakdown of everything it is we do, right? But if not, they're overwhelmed, or they're on Pinterest and they want all these crazy things, but they don't know how much it costs.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, Megan, when you said, like, you know, they get bombarded with questions, you guys, it's okay to say, we don't know yet. You know, we don't know yet. We haven't started planning yet. We're taking our time. Lie, it's okay. Because then people start giving opinions, right? Like, ouch.
Yes. Yeah. I think that it needs to be over a bottle of wine or something. Like, make it fun. So as fun as you can make a kind of difficult conversation, and you need to go into it knowing that it's not going to be all rainbows and unicorns. You're going to have to talk about, you know, your mom, their mom, and the financial side of things. And you may want a 350 person wedding and your fiance is an introvert and something small, 25 people was their plan. And you have to kind of start talking, as Dee said, about what's most important to you versus what's most important to your partner. So there's plan for it to be uncomfortable at moments, but know that the goal is to come out of it knowing financially, where do you want to be? What are your top priorities as a team? Because you're a team.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of, you're a team from this day forward through hopefully forever, right? You know, that is one of those things that it brings out, I've said this many times before, but weddings bring out the best and the worst in people. And you want to make sure that you two are focused on, we're a team. How are we going to combat some of these hurdles that just come along with planning a wedding?
Yeah, totally. So as Dee mentioned, after you have sit down with a bottle of wine and talk about your priority, what's important for you too, because it's your wedding, it's not your mom's or your sister or anybody's weddings, it's yours wedding. The next day, you're gonna sit down with another bottle of wine, talk about money, because you need some alcohol to talk about this. Yes. So what are, Dee, what are some things you think they should be discussing regarding to the budget? I see this a lot also on the Facebook groups, and I'm sure you guys see this too. It's like, I'm looking for a photographer that doesn't break the bank. What does that mean? Or inexpensive. What does that mean? I get that they don't know how much things cost, but I think it's important to, before anything, set up your budget. So Dee, what are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a huge education process because they have to know style of, like, let's say with the photographers, right? What type of style do they like? What is the experience of the photographer? And does that resonate with me, right? You can't just put a price point on something. Or sometimes to break it down even further, I would be able to put things into like perspective for them, right? I'm like, okay, here guys, you have your Target, Walmart type clients, you got your Kate Spade type clients, and then you got your LV and Chanel. You got to know where you want to be in all that. And where does your money fall? Right. You cannot go up to LV and Chanel and say, hey, I want a discount, because that's not happening. But you can also come to us with a Target, Walmart budget and ask for all these top tier things. You got to be realistic with where you want to be, right? Yeah. I think once I break it into those categories that they're familiar with, they're like, yeah, you're right. You know, because you can give me a budget, but I have to say, okay, when you looked at a venue, did you think about the food and beverage minimum plus the service fees and taxes? Because they only look at one number, they forget about the others. And once you add up all these other vendors, I'm like, you can have this venue, but what about your vendors? You're gonna be lacking in decor, and you're gonna be lacking a lot of other things. So you have to balance things out. So I think it's important for them to understand that in order to be able to figure out where they want to be. And it's part, you can agree with me or not, I think it's a part of our job to almost educate them on making the best and most informed decision for their budget and for their, you know, their, in essence, what they're wanting for their wedding day.
Yeah. Megan?
I think one of the first questions that they should be asking each other in that sit down budget meeting is, out of this day, what are the top 3 things that are like, that's where you want to put your money, and that's the top priority for you? And then what are the top 3 that maybe are the least important when it comes to the budget? I ask that in a questionnaire with my couples, and I give them some examples, and I try to say, like, for me, when I got married, stationery was not a huge line item for our budget, but the food was. So that's really like that starting conversation is, what's most important to you, what's least important to you, and then where can we like find common ground between those lists. And one last thought on the budget, because this kind of ties into the family dynamics part, is when you're thinking about including parents or special family members that want to financially contribute to the wedding, understand that that money typically does not come just as money into the fund. It also comes with opinions and preferences that you're going to have to factor into the wedding. So if your fiance's family member says, we're going to put $20,000 towards the wedding, know that that means they're going to want to have a say in how that money is spent, potentially what the flowers look like, what the food courses look like, what alcohol is served at the wedding. And you have to be okay with that. Or you need to part 3 of that budget, that third bottle of wine that you're going to split. Actually, just make it 4 because you're going to need one for the parents too. Is a conversation over how that money plays into the overall budget and what it comes along with, if that makes sense. There's definitely strings attached to it. And are you okay with those strings?
For sure. Yeah. I see you nodding, Dee. You want to add anything?
No, we have Megan here who's the expert, and I'm agreeing with her too, because it comes down to a lot of these conversations with them and trying to figure out again, like, you know, what it is they want for that day and prioritizing everything. But she nailed every single one. The must-haves is a big. I always ask them, what are your 3 big must-haves? You know, and so knowing that helps drive the informed decisions on what to do best for them.
Yeah, and what I also wanted to add about the budget is, you know, usually when we spend the most amount of money they will spend is venue and cater, right? Food, and then it's going down. But one thing that I see, this Facebook group teach me so much about insights, you know, from the couples. It's amazing. It's like, oh my God, I just got quote, I don't know, $1,000 for the flowers. Is that normal? It's like sometimes they go in not knowing, you know, how much things cost. So, you know, you can find a florist that is cheaper, but then if you want to work with, I don't know, what is the name of the florist? A floral designer that is super, you know, top, it's going to cost you way more. So you need to be realistic. And Dee was talking about being realistic. So I think that's also important to consider. With the 4-bottle wine, 5th, I don't know how many we have.
We're going to get to 12 before the end. Yeah, we're going to get to 12 before the end of this for sure.
Yeah. And then for the family dynamics, did you guys think can they put boundaries when they, you know, if like the bride's family is giving $20,000 towards the wedding, do you think it's okay for the bride maybe to set some boundaries from the beginning? Okay, or you guys think that creates like friction? Maybe not. Let's not talk about it.
I think where things go wrong is that they often try to set boundaries too late. So yeah, I do think you can at least attempt to set boundaries at the beginning. So if the parents say, we're going to give you $20,000, you have to say, great, we would love to have that be part of our wedding budget, but here are what our goals are. And so if you're willing to give this money, it needs to be that you're giving it without those strings attached, or that you tell us what's one thing. I think that could be a nice thing to do, is if parents are contributing money, ask them, tell me, what is a top priority for you? Is it that you get to invite second and third cousins? Is it that we need to have a top shelf liquor on the bar because that's something that's important to you? And does that align with what the couple has already determined as their goals? Then yes, you can set boundaries. But Lord have mercy for the number of times that couples have tried to put their foot down midway through the planning process. That's not going to go well for anyone.
Yeah. Dee, have you had any experience with those type of couples that's, you know, put boundaries too late?
Well, the thing is, like I said, we try to educate them ahead of time. So we try to avoid that. Cause like in past experience, you deal with that, right? Or I get tugged at, like mom or auntie will come up to me and like, Dee, we want this. I would have to still stand firm and say, you know what, per the couple, this is what they want. And I still get that sometimes on the day of. But when they realize and you educate them ahead of time, those expectations are set up early on, just like Megan said, it makes it a little bit easier, right? Because like recently we just signed a new client and groom's like, yeah, my dad wants to pay for this, but his big thing is we need to have certain food items on the menu. And I was like, okay, that's something very reasonable that we can work with. And he goes, I really need, you know, room blocks. Okay, that's something very reasonable we can work with. So when things are a little unreasonable, that's where the education comes in. And sometimes we might have to just step in to talk to the parents and like give them the dose of reality. And by the way, this is why we can't do certain things like this, or this is how we can do this to accommodate that, just depending on the situation. But if we don't take that extra step to educate them from the very beginning, we will deal with a lot of things that create a lot of, you know, scenarios for us that we're just going to have to like navigate at that point.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I just thought about something that happened to me at one wedding. Sometimes, especially in my culture, Latinos, we have that tia that is, you know, loves to cook, and we have that other tia that loves to do floral arrangements, and they're gonna offer to do it for you. So you have to really think about, you know, do you want your tias working on your wedding day, or you rather have them enjoy and, you know, be part of the wedding and then hire a professional to do that? And talking about professionals, sometimes, and this happened to me, you have that tia that loves to do arrangements for, you know, tables and will offer to do things. If you're gonna say yes, please sit down and talk to them what they're gonna do and how is it gonna look, because it needs to be cohesive within your wedding decor. Yeah, we can do another episode about horror stories, like things not to do. But, you know, you can accept that help, but ask them, what is it going to look like? Like, I'll tell them, these are my colors. You know, this is my vibe. It's boho. You know, don't do tulle, stuff like that. You know, side note.
Yeah, I think that ties so nicely into what I think all three of us are saying. It's the idea of communication and expectations. And yeah, that's the theme for what we do as planners. Like how we serve our clients really well is we communicate, we understand expectations. It's the same thing for couples between the two of them, couples and vendors. But yes, those horror stories, and there's nothing worse than having a vision in your mind for your wedding day and looking at it and seeing that it's nothing like you imagine. Like you can't go back and do that over, and then you're living, you know, for your example of the flowers, like it wasn't what you pictured. Maybe you didn't fully understand, they didn't understand, and or things went awry because their understanding of like load in, setup, materials, all of that wasn't at a professional level. And then maybe you saved $1,000 by not hiring someone, but then you don't love what your day looks like. And that makes me sad.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I asked the client too is, this is how I kind of curb those scenarios, is besides the whole mock-up, I'm like, oh, does this person have their own business? Do they have liability insurance? Are they going to be providing a certificate of liability to the venue in case anything happens, if you're doing setups and everything of that sort? So when those kind of conversations come into play, a lot of times they're going to say, no, they don't have a professional business. No, they do not have certificate of liability insurance. And then that kind of helps me, because early on, you know, whether it's Latinos or it's Asians and everybody else in between, that someone's got that auntie, that mom who wants to get involved.
Yeah.
And one year in the beginning of my career, that happened to me, and I was just mortified. It looked like funeral spreads. And I was like, this is a wedding. And yeah, that looks like something I would buy for a funeral arrangement. and there was nothing I could do. And I had to think about, how do I curb some of these things, because too, everything was running behind schedule because of the fact that they're trying to get ready. They're trying to do these
Yeah.
floral arrangements.
Yeah.
My hair and makeup team is there for a certain period of time. And then like in the Chinese culture too, you also have tea ceremony, and
Yeah.
they're really traditional. It has to happen before 12 o'clock, and try to get everything done, hair, makeup, and centerpieces. It just does not work. So I've realized when I ask certain questions, like, do they have, professional business or liability insurance? And those kind of help me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a great tip for that I have learned, piggybacking on top of what Dee shared, is I recommend when you get those offers from friends and family members, find ways to put them into other events, whether it's the rehearsal dinner or engagement party or
Yeah.
bridal shower or brunch. Like, tell them, make it about them, make it that, oh my gosh, I love that you've offered to do this, and I really want to take you up on it, but it's very important to me that you get to relax and take in all the moments and be a guest at my wedding. So if we can find one of these XYZ other events, absolutely. And that could go for food, for photography, for flowers, for cake, all the things, music. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's a great tip. Love it. I'm going to write it down.
Right,
Here. Yeah, I'm here. Okay. So the next bottle of wine. I'm going to drink.
That's what I have in here. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. This is water, by the way. This is water. Look. Have you seen this at the beginning of the pandemic? People had put a tea thing and it was wine in there. Yeah, that's funny.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you guys think is important to do next after they have defined their budget and have those conversations with the family?
Do you want to go first, Dee? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we'll let Megan go first.
Oh gosh, I don't want to. Okay,
Megan, go.
I think that after you have had the conversation with your partner, you have had your budget conversation with your family, this is when you get to start really planning. And I always say that you want to select those vendors that they're only going to take one wedding for a date. So typically they're your top priority. Obviously you have to get your venue picked and your date picked, but then following from there, it's look at that top priority list. Was photography at the top of your list? Was it videography? Was it band? Book those vendors first, because they're not going to be able to do more than one wedding in a day, and they're typically your top choices. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, like a whole vetting process is so important based on your priority list. And the other thing I try to avoid, honestly, is like sometimes the clients don't know and they come to you because they saw a Facebook ad or Instagram ad for these agencies. And when you say like, don't, find someone that I rather have personal relationships with some of these vendors, or find a vendor that is more of a boutique, or like you said, can only take one wedding, because sometimes you have no control over quality when it comes to like agencies shooting out photographers video, or outsourcing their national providers on things. So I think that's very important, because you want everything to flow overall, and you want to know that you have someone to email and contact versus a company and then they're going to send someone else later that you don't even know. So I think that's important, is being able to build those personal relationships with your vendors versus hiring like bigger agencies to do things.
Yeah. One other thing is that literally any vendor can have a beautiful website and a beautiful Instagram feed right now. You can outsource it. There's stock images. You can hire someone to do it. Anyone can have that. So definitely do not pick your vendors just based off of their Instagram feed or their website. You have to do more digging than that.
Yeah. Check reviews, talk to them. Ask for referrals if you want to. I've been asked for referrals from other couples a few times. I'm like, yeah, sure, here it is. One thing I also wanted to add, it's, about picking the date. Usually they go for something that is meaningful for the both of them, a month or like this year, it really didn't happen, 10, 10, 20. Sorry. Thanks. But I also think it's important to be flexible, right? I know it's your wedding, but in this particular case, I think we also need to involve other people, the families, to see they're available. Maybe you have that your sister that she's planning on getting pregnant, and you don't want her to be due the day of your wedding. That has happened to me before. So think about that too. Just I wanted to make a note on the picking the date. Yes.
I'm a classic bride example of this, actually. So when I got married, it was 10 years ago, and I worked as a venue coordinator at the time, and I was going to have my wedding at the venue where I worked because, let's be honest, discount, like great discount.
Yeah.
And we looked at the dates that were open. There was this crazy awesome Saturday in May, which is a popular time frame in North Carolina. So my husband and I were like, absolutely, let's do it. Sign. This is the only Saturday left in May. Well, it was Mother's Day weekend, which is still, and graduation. So it was graduation for all 3 universities in the town where I'm located. It was Mother's Day weekend, and there was something else going on that weekend. So what you said, Carla, like totally do some research on the date there. I didn't. I totally didn't. I was like, great. And I wasn't a mom, so that wasn't a factor to me, but I should have maybe checked with my own mom and my husband's mom to say, hey, is it okay that we're looking at Mother's Day weekend? Or, factoring in if there was anyone in our family that was graduating that would be pulled in 2 different directions.
Yeah. I had a bride last year that they picked a date, and we were talking for wedding management, and then she told me, because we get hired after all that, and she was like, yeah, we were gonna get married in April, and then it was, I don't remember the location that they picked, but then they decided to move it here to LA. It was Coachella weekend. There were no hotels. Anyway.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, oops. So yeah, do some research. It's super important to do that, because sometimes we don't really think about it because it's our wedding, right?
Stay away from Valentine's weekend too.
Yeah.
Oh, cost of flowers.
Yeah. The cost of flowers around Mother's Day and Valentine's.
Yes.
Forget these factors, and they're like, but I got a quote for this other month. And I'm like, well, what weekend are we looking at? We're looking at Mother's Day and we're looking at Valentine's Day. That's when people buy flowers the most.
Yeah. And some florists won't take any weddings because they're already swamped with, arrangements to deliver on that day. So yeah.
Good tip. Good tip.
Yeah. Or some vendors actually have like a premium fee for those, so for some dates. So that's also something to consider. Yeah. So on the, there are several steps, and I'm sure if you reach out to any of us, I'll put their information down here. We all have checklists that you can, for to help you with your planning process. It's a long process. That's why, usually a year is recommended. Although if you want to plan a wedding in 4 months, it can happen. But I had to ask these questions because I have to. We're all planners here. So there's some couples that, they are on the lower end of a lower budget. They decide to do a lot of DIY, which is okay until a certain extent. But what are your thoughts on why it's important to hire a planner, or when to hire a planner, or even just a coordinator to manage your event or your wedding? Dee, you go first.
I always try to tell them, like, I understand that cost is a big factor, but the other thing too is you're hiring an expert who does this how many times a year. So they're able to help you, break down the process and understand it. Because a lot of times, sometimes by the time they hire us, it's too late. It's because the frustrations have built up. They've made their mistakes, and where we could have helped them maximize on their wedding vision and budget, we can no longer do that. So that sometimes it even makes it difficult to take on a wedding management client, right? Because now you're trying to fix certain things, and some things just can't be fixed at that point. So what I tell them is, if we get hired from the very beginning, we can help you sort through these things, look at your priority list, and figure out what makes the most sense for you and your wedding day. How do we balance between what the bride and the groom both want? And sometimes they want the same things and sometimes they don't, but we're able to do so much more at the very beginning with them versus trying to come in towards the very end and try to fix things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I see that often too, where, are you guys familiar with I think it's like a fairy tale called Rumpelstiltskin, where he spins the hay into gold? Are you familiar with that? No? Okay, so I have equated that sometimes to when we come in at the tail end and we try to fix things where contracts have been signed and things have been committed to, whereas when a planner is able to guide you more on the front end, I find that so many times the cost of what you have spent on the planner, you easily save in other things because the planner helps you make smart, educated decisions. I think it's just, we as planners need to do a better job of educating the true value of what we do, because I believe that couples get engaged and they think, okay, maybe I need someone there on the day of to make everything run smoothly, but maybe not, because there's a venue coordinator and my aunt can do the ceremony. And I don't think they realize how much guidance goes into it before the day of, and the thought when it comes to the timeline and the layout of the space. So I mean, obviously we're all very biased, right?
Yeah.
But I think that having a planner on this, you're never going to spend this much money on one day again in your entire life. You're just not. Even if you're keeping it simple and going low key, you're never going to spend this much money on one day. Why would you chance it for things to fall through the cracks and for you to be disappointed when you should be hiring an expert to, at the bare minimum, to come in and be that point person so that your mom's not having to work and your bridesmaids aren't having to move chairs and your uncle's not having to break down tables at 11 o'clock at night. Like, these are not the memories that you want when you don't have someone running the show for you.
Absolutely. And I agree. I have nothing to add.
Sorry, I got on a soapbox there. I just.
Okay, well, don't bye. No, just kidding. Any final thoughts, or what is one thing you guys will tell a couple that just got engaged about planning their wedding?
What's one thing I'll tell a couple about planning their wedding? I always tell them that no matter what we do, we want to make it uniquely you. It could be anything. When you're talking to them, having these wine bottle conversations. What wine bottle are we on, guys?
17.
So when we have these conversations, at the end of the day, this is your special day. And we have to find those elements that make it you. So when you look back, it's something that you're proud of and you're like, wow, we incorporated this because, he really liked that and she really wanted this. And it's something that you're going to hold dear to versus looking at it and going, oh man, I wish I had done this. So I always say, no matter what, find ways to make it uniquely you at the end of the day, something you can just be proud of and look back and be happy about.
I love that. Yeah.
I love that too.
Yeah.
I think mine is very similar. My word would be be intentional about the choices that you're making. So be intentional about the guests that are on the guest list. Be intentional about how much money you're spending. Don't go deeply into debt over one day. So think about what you actually can afford, and then think about the people that you actually want there. And I think 2020 brought great clarity to that in a number of ways.
Yes.
But yeah, just be intentional about the decisions. Be intentional about the fact that the day is about you too. It's not about the 150 people that are there. You want to create a great experience for them, but it is one day. And I think that's something that I, as a luxury event planner, it's funny for me to say that because I love when couples do elaborate over the top events, but I want them to do it because that's within their means and it's important to them, not just for the show of what they think others are expecting them to do. So just going back, be intentional about the choices that you make for this one day.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. That's also what I wanted to say. And, about being intentional and think about things that really mean to you. And that's one of the reasons I think I made a post on my Instagram talking about that I'm kind of loving micro weddings. And it's not because we're forced to do it because of COVID. It's because it's been forcing us and you as a couple to really think about who you want to be there and what is important to you. So, and actually that day is going to have more meaning. So yeah, I love what you guys add. Thank you. Dee, where can people find you? I know you are, so Dee is a luxury wedding planner as well here, but she also is very well known here in Los Angeles for quinceañeras. But tell us where people can find you.
Well, you'll see a lot of my stories and a lot of my work at Dee Lee Designs. And then you'll also see, as Carla had mentioned, I work with the quinceañera market as well. They call me the quince fairy godmother, so you'll find me there as well.
Yeah.
They always say, I'm the one that makes their, magical moments happen. So the kids have nicknamed me the fairy godmother.
I love that.
I love that too.
How about you, Megan? Where can people find you?
Yes, so my planning company is a Southern Soiree, and we're in North Carolina, but we do weddings all across the East Coast. And then I have a podcast that we interview wedding vendors. It's called Weddings for Real. So there's some good content in there. And I have a planner's education site, but if you're a couple, that may not be of interest to you. But if you are a planner watching this, it's called The Planner's Vault.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I'm a member.
Yay.
Yay. So if you guys, have questions, feel free to reach any of us. We're happy to help. If you're planning destination weddings, all of us are available. If you are thinking of becoming a wedding planner, reach out to Megan.
Yes.
If you are a mom watching this and your baby is gonna turn 15 soon, Dee is your girl. So I hope you really enjoy this and enjoy the process of planning your wedding. It's a one-time deal, hopefully. You only do it once. Enjoy the process. Try to work as a team with your fiance. Don't take, I feel this is something I wanted to add and I forgot, sometimes the brides especially get so stressed out because they take all the responsibility and they don't want to delegate. But look at what your, fiance, if they're a man, strengths are and delegate those. Usually it's the bar, the music, those. Don't take all the responsibility, all the tasks to you because you're not going to enjoy it. So again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Megan, so much. This was amazing. Great tips. There's so much to talk about, but this will be like 3 hours long if we go in depth on every single thing that they need to do to planning your wedding. But have a great weekend. Happy holidays. And I hope to see you soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Gracias for tuning in. If this video was valuable for you, make sure to like and comment below. And of course, subscribe. See you next time. Bye.